fellow rusty electricians. I wanted to do a video today to share some of the things I've learned, the tips and tricks I've learned playing with circuitry and electricity in Rust. I'm going to go over the basic stuff that pretty much everybody knows probably if you're watching this video, but I'm going to hit it real quick. Start with the power generation, and the first level of that is these large solar panels. These are readily available at a number of small monuments, and they're relatively cheap on the level 1 workbench skill tree, so they're not too bad. Probably the worst part is the 2 tech trash that you need to build one. If you only have one, you're going to want to face it due north. That will give you the best charge throughout the day, as the sun in Rust is in the north sky. Apparently wherever Rust is taking place, it is south of the equator. If you have 2, you can point one east and point one west, facing west, and you'll have a really good charge throughout the day no matter where the sun is. You can run them independently or run them into this root combiner, and that will combine their strength. And of course, if you have more than 2, you can build a solar array and you'll have power all day. And build a series of them and you can get quite a bit of power, more than enough to power a base. I built this panel because I wanted to show the difference in the angle of the sun and how much power generation, but it's pretty much giving everybody except for the one facing west full power. As you can see, it's only giving it 7 power, and the rest are all reading 20, which is the max for one solar panel. The only thing other than angle to the sun that'll affect the power generation of a solar panel is damage. If they're heavily damaged, they will not produce power. Like 3/4 damage, they won't produce any power. So be aware of that. They might still exist and you might still look up and see them, but if they're heavily damaged, they won't send any power to your batteries. So be aware of that. Don't put them too close to a wall or anything else. I once put my solar panels too close to a wind turbine and it shaded it, and even though the solar panel was in direct sun like this, it was not reading any sunlight. So be careful. Some things can block light that doesn't look like it does, but if you misplace one, you can always pick it up and move it. Moving along here, we got the generator. These are really handy as a backup source of power if your main source dies, or it might be your main source of power if you live in a cave. When supplied with low-grade fuel, you produce a steady 40 watts of charging power. I have a switch that I made up to turn this off automatically, but I'll get back to that later. I built this wind farm to illustrate the difference in altitude and charging power with a wind turbine. As you can see, the one on the left over here on the foundations producing 20 less power than the turbine on the far right on the 4th level platform. And that's pretty close to what it normally is. It can go a little more than 20, so you get roughly maybe 5 watts of extra power per level there. It does have a maximum, so you can build them tall, but I wouldn't go nuts with it. Anyway, I just wanted to show that to you, their functionality. Consistent power all the time. These usually range in like 80 though. This is kind of low charging power here. These are really nice. But moving along, we'll go to the power storage. And the first level of that is the small rechargeable battery, which has 400 rust minutes. 400 rust watt minutes. And has a maximum of 15 watt output. The medium battery has 9,000 rust watt minutes, and it has a maximum output of 50 watts. And the Big Daddy has a maximum 24,000 rust watt minutes and a maximum output of 100 watts. So definitely more than enough to power a whole base. You got a couple options if you want to use multiple batteries. You can run them in series, or you can run them in parallel like this. If you're going to run them in series, do not hook it up as I have here. This is the way you might do it in real life, but this is bad because when this lead battery has a discharge, and it only has a discharge of active use of 1, the secondary battery is going to try to push 100% of its active usage into the other battery. So you get 15 active usage going on and off, and that will kill this battery quickly if there's any discharge here. And that is true if this little battery is hooked to this medium battery. It will try to draw 50 amps or 50 watts, whatever it can get out of this battery. So it will max it out on active usage until it tops off. And so, if you got a battery constantly clicking on and off at max active usage, it's going to kill it. So don't do it that way. You're going to want to eliminate that connection and add a branch in. A branch is awesome if you want to restrict the power flow from one thing to another. So we'll connect it like this, and we will connect this to the branch outside of the branch. Connect that, and in order to figure out what to configure that at, we're going to turn on this circuit and see what it uses when it's active, which is 5. So we will configure this at 6 to make sure it can stay ahead of the discharge on this battery, which should keep it topped off and won't max this battery out or whatever's connected to it. I'll just go ahead and leave that on. Here we have a couple of batteries in parallel connected with a root combiner, and that will double the output, which is useful if you have a limited space or you don't have the stuff for the medium battery. However, there is one very important thing to note when running batteries in parallel like this, and that is, if you look, you see the battery on the left has a active usage of 6, and so does the one on the right. So they're actually using 12 between the two of them. So the recharge rate on this is like 13 or 14 to keep both these batteries fed, whereas this only needs 7 to stay topped off. So it's double. When you run them in parallel, the charging is double what you'll need to keep them topped off. Important to note, if you got a lot of charging, I guess it's okay, but something to think about. There are a couple of components in Rust which produce their own power. One of them is this pressure plate, which will produce a couple of watts of power when stepped on. Great for a door opener or a trigger of some kind. Maybe you're not good at closing doors when you come inside, this will automatically close it for you. If you're going to use it like that, you're going to want to make sure that the pressure plate is at least 1 block away from the door, that way you don't get caught in the sweep of the door. The button kind of works the same way. It'll send out a short pulse of 1 or 2 watts of power, good enough to trip a sensor or open a door or something. So you want to take a quick peek outside, open your shutters real quick, or if some wise guy leaves your shutters open, you can close them that way. The target is another component. When you down it, it produces a burst of power. Well, this one's powered, but let me turn that off. When you knock it down, when it's not unpowered, it will produce just a pulse, just like the switch or the pressure plate. But you can run power to it and it will stay on as long as it's down. There are a couple more tripping mechanisms I'll get into in just a second, but I did want to go over this branch, which I've seen some weird stuff with this online, and I kind of want to go over that. I've seen a lot of people run their main power, their main circuit off the branch outside, and they'll set the configuration to whatever charge that they want to set. If you look, we have 2 circuits basically doing the same amount of work. Both of these are running the sensor. This one's running the HBHF sensor, and that one's the laser detector. So they're doing the same amount of work, but the drain on the battery is a lot different. This one has 14 active usage, whereas this one only has 4. Now, I suppose if whatever you're powering is going to be on constantly, or that's the demand, constant demand, and I guess it doesn't really matter, but if you're switching things off and on, you want to save energy, this is the configuration you want to go with. your small low voltage thing run off the branch out, and the main power off the power outside. I guess a lot of people do it this way. I don't know. It just seems kind of weird to me. I wanted to point that out. The branch is really awesome for restricting power usage. And so if you want to reduce the amount of wasted energy going into your system, they're great for that. If you want to split, obviously you'd use the splitter. And the splitter, any amount of power coming into it will be equally split across all connected circuits. So this one has 3 circuits, so it's split 3 ways. And then step down again. And this one's also split 3 ways, so we get, you have 2 circuits at 32 and 2 at 10. And then we drop it down again, and we have 3 circuits at 3 power each. Now that's enough to power a sensor and its related action. So that's enough power to do things with. It's not wasted. As you can see, this one goes to the RF receiver. This one goes to a switch, and this one goes to the storage monitor, which is enough power to activate those things. Over here we have the timer, which works just like an off-on switch. It allows power to flow through for a given period of time and then shuts off. Just like the on-off switch, it has an activator over here on this side, which will toggle it on and off. The on and off switches also have this, a switch on and a switch off. You just saw how the blocker worked. Power is supplied to this side, and anytime power is supplied to the block side, it blocks it. So it cuts the circuit as long as there's power given to this side. It's very useful. Next up we have the RAND switch, or the random switch. And the way that this works is it's an open circuit. It opens and closes the circuit at random depending on the input signal. So we're going to go ahead and trip the input here a few times so you can see it kind of goes off and on at random. See, it's random. And on the random switch, you have the power in, you have the set node and the reset node, and the power out. Its default position is in the open position. You can always just reset it and make sure it's in the default. Next up is the memory cell. And if you like to build trap bases, and you're really going to love this if you don't know it yet, it's an awesome tool. It's in its default setting. It allows power to the inverted output side, and there is no power to the output side. It has a set button, reset, and a toggle, and of course the power in. I have this one set to this switch so you can see when stepped on, it flips the switch over to the other side, and no matter how many times you reset this, it will just stay there until it's reset somehow. I will activate the toggle switch here in just a second. I want to go to the OR switch, the AND switch, and the XOR switch. And these all 3 of these kind of operate in the same principle here. These 6 switches, all the switches on the left, so this one, and this one are all high voltage, and this one, and this one are low voltage. And that does matter. Did want to show you the OR switch works when either or both of the switches are on. It allows power to pass through. The output of the OR switch is determined by the highest input of the OR switch. So this one's 15, it eats a power, so its output is 14. Even though there's 2 more power coming in right here, it doesn't add them together. It just sort of uses this side. However, it is drawing from both power sources. If we go over here to the other side, you can see this is what's hooked up. You can see the active usage is 6. Active usage is 6. We're going to turn them off. Back down to 2. So even though it's only transmitting the higher input, is drawing from both. So that's important to know. Important to know. In case you kill a battery. Now the AND switch is both circuits have to be open or on in order for it to open, and that's the principle of which way it works. Same thing here. There'll be a draw on both circuits, but it only transmit this one. And then the XOR switch works if only one of these is open. If both are open, it closes. So of course it will be whatever the input is what the output will be. That's how those work. They are useful. They all have their uses. I'm going to start with the trigger mechanisms now. As you can see, the laser bouncing off the wall right here, and I did want to point out this thing about the laser is I can interrupt it down here and walk towards it and it will not go off. But if I step out of the laser and interrupt it again, and it kind of works that way for about a block and a half, but you get any further than that, it doesn't set it off, which isn't really a flaw. It's actually useful that way, depending on how you use it. So just something to know about the laser detector. It has a limit to where it can be set off. However, if you do break it up here and you back way down here, it still can see you. So if you interrupt it way over there, it still can see you back here. Next up, you have the HBHF sensor, which can detect friendly or foe. Go ahead and configure it to see me right now. And whenever it sees its target, it opens a circuit, allows power to pass through. However, it will only allow like 1 or 2 watts to go through. It won't allow a whole lot of power. Some of the other devices you can push a lot of power through, but this sensor you can only push like 1 or 2 watts through, so it won't power many things. It's the one drawback, but something to notice. So go ahead and shut that off. Probably my favorite sensor. I use it a lot. Next up, you would have the RF broadcaster and RF receiver combo that you can use to set off things. If you look over there at the memory cell, it's in the set position. We'll reset it and toggle it back. Wait for the button to pop out. And if you didn't want it, you weren't near this setup, you can just use a handheld remote. This is my newest favorite triggering mechanism. I love it for its ability to start things from across the map, let alone across your base. So. Next up, we have the storage monitor, and the way this works is anytime something is added or removed from the box, it sets off a signal. Now, apparently I didn't hook this up to anything. But it has 3 power supplied, so it can actually set off something else, and we'll set it over here to this smart alarm. So now, when the inventory in the box changes, it sends out an impulse, which either can alert your phone or turn on a switch or whatever you want. It's a good triggering mechanism. That's all for that basic stuff. Over here we have the voices, or the music stuff, and the voice thing. The unique thing about this is you can power pretty much the whole thing on one circuit. So we have power going out, coming to the boom box, and then out of the boom box is this audio out, and that'll actually power devices that are hooked to it, like sound light, the laser light, disco floor, the disco balls, or external speakers. One of the cool things about this, I mean, it's kind of complicated if you wanted to use it for this, but you can use the telephone as a triggering device, as it has a power out signal. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to give this phone a name, call it home. So it'll be like ET will phone home. Oops. Take out the cell phone. I will look in the directory for home, and there it is. So that's an interesting way of triggering stuff if you wanted to do it that way. I thought that was kind of neat. But, turn this on real quick. The sound quality out of the boombox is a lot better than these concert speakers. They sound kind of like in a can type of thing, you know. I don't know if it'll play or not. They're making noise. We'll just leave that off. Anyway, you know, if you needed more sound, I would recommend multiple boomboxes as opposed to those speakers. Moving along here, probably one of my favorite circuits of all time. HBH or F sensor sitting outside there. That triggers this setup. This is a branch, timer, door controller combo. And the way it's set up is the main power comes in to the branch. The main power off the branch goes into the timer. Branch out goes to the HBHF sensor or whatever you want to use. Then the signal wire coming off your sensor is going to come down and go into the activation or the toggle on activator, and that will power the door open. So kick it on that way if you want, and it'll automatically close after a few seconds. But this works really great if you're driving a car, or maybe you're in a boat in a water base and you don't want to change seats and open the door. Just have it automatically open. It's not gonna, there we go. Oh, I must have manually opened it. But that's a very useful circuit. It's useful for a lot of things right here, just these two together. I'll get to more on that later, but it's probably the most common one. This might be the actual most common circuit I build, because it's in just about every base, and this is an automated lighting system. What you have outside there are a couple of solar panels, one facing east, one facing west to get the most of the daylight. That signal comes in here to the branch, and the main power goes to the battery, and the branch out goes to the blocker side of a blocker. This way, when the solar panels lose light and have no more energy, it will open the circuit, turning the lights on. And when the sun comes back up and the solar panels see light goes off. Over here we have pretty much the same thing. This is an XOR switch, and it's receiving a signal from the solar panels and the battery at the same time, so it is off. So when the daylight is interrupted, it opens and allows the battery. The only difference is this setup has no active usage when off, and this one is 2. So you're spending a couple of watts to do it this way. Sometimes your base isn't in the most ideal place, or whatever the deal is. Your solar panels don't want to see light, or maybe you just have one and you want the light to stay on all night, but you don't want to kill your batteries. This is a way of getting around that. I have this set up for sunset. So when the sun sets, this timer will start and keep the light on for a certain amount of time, usually 10 minutes, and then shut off at dawn. And the way this is set up is, here's the solar panel coming in here, and the main part off this branch will go to charge the battery. The branch off of this first branch will go into the blocker side of a blocker. And then you have your battery and the power coming off your battery. The main power will go into the timer. The branch off will go into the power side of the blocker. And then this way, when power is cut, this will open and start the timer. And that'll run for as long as you want it to, and then shut off. I think this is set for like 10 seconds or something, but you get the idea. If you have a less than ideal spot for solar panels, this could be a way around to have automated lighting. Moving on here, this is definitely my favorite circuit in this configuration for a turret. Same thing, we have a blocker, timer, HBHF sensor. So main power from the blocker goes into the timer, branch out goes into the power in of the HBHF sensor. Then the signal coming out of the sensor will go into the toggle of the timer, kicking it on for a few seconds. So anytime somebody trips this sensor, they're going to make this gun come on, which is great if you want guns to come on in a local fashion. You want just one gun in an area to come on and not all your guns. Got to get rid of that real quick. I forgot that build cost was there. So here we have pretty much the same setup as this, only this trigger is the RF receiver. So I can just kick it on manually like that. Or you can use, some of these spammed out around the area, a bunch of sensors to power one gun. Or vice versa, you could have multiple guns hooked to one sensor. Or you want to do it in this fashion. This way this is always on. And of course you have the manual button hit that you could do to start it up. Over here I have an example of I don't have that hooked up right now. Let's power that. So we have a laser here, and if we interrupt this laser, it turns that switch on and keeps it on, which is good if what you want is the pager to go off. That's useful for that. That way the pager will continuously going off and let you know that the alarm has been set off. So we'll go kill that power on that. Keep setting it off. Over here we have sort of an adjustable pulse switch, if you will. This is a loop that's going to keep feeding itself. Turn it on. You can see it keeps setting the timer off. And a loop, you can adjust the time on it, hence the name. And so what is this useful for? Well, go ahead and add a branch out so we can run one power source here. We'll add the old RAN switch there. We're going to disconnect the power off so we're going to take the main off the first branch power supply and put it in power in the second branch, and then take the main power off that branch and put it to the timer. Then we're going to take the branch off the second branch. Let me make that orange. We're going to power the RAN switch with it. Then we're going to take the main power off the second after timer branch, and we're going to put that in the set side of the RAN switch. And for the power out, we're going to take that, we're going to move it all the way over here, and we're going to open and close this door with it. So when I activate this, it should keep clicking around and randomly resetting and opening and closing this door. Okay, I'll go ahead and cut that off and interrupt that. So why would something like this be useful? Well, most raids happen, they're offline raids. So if somebody thinks you're home because the door opens and closes at random every couple of minutes, because this doesn't have to be like 10 seconds, it can be every couple of minutes the door opens and closes. They might go find a easier target. I'm not saying it'll prevent you from getting raided, but it might deter somebody if they hear a door opening and closing. They don't want to do an online raid, they want to offline raid you. So anyway, that was kind of I haven't used this ever in a game, just in the build. But, here's something I have built and used in an actual game. It's a little complicated and a little extravagant for my normal circuits, but this is a Vending monitor. So let's say you had a Vending's out in the world and you want to be notified when a sale happens. You'd set something up like this. This storage monitor is going to send a signal out across a couple of different things through the splitter to this memory cell, this counter, and then that'll go through from the memory cell into this broadcaster and to this boom box. Now, if the voices thing worked in this server, which they don't, I could record a short message with a cassette tape and put it in here and have that play every time somebody buys something from my Vending, but it doesn't work in here. I did that in game, but it doesn't work in here. So anyway, we'll simulate a sale here. I'll buy a boombox. So the radio will play for a little while, and my buzzer will go off until this is either reset or I turn off the pager. As you can see, that counted. So if you sell a lot, it'll have you how many you've sold and give you a visual representation, let you know there's changes. If all that buzzing and stuff wasn't enough. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be this complicated or have this much stuff in it. This is just a setup that I actually used one time, so I wanted to duplicate it and show you. But the way it works is you have your power supply coming into the splitter. Then the power 3 goes out to the first branch. Power off the first branch goes into the second branch. The branch off the first branch will go in and power the storage monitor. Then the main power in the second branch, it will power the counter and the memory cell. And so when a signal is passed through the storage monitor, go into the splitter and out across all these things, triggering what you just seen. A little complicated and power-hungry circuit. This one's at 13, so it needs a bit of a charge to maintain that. Now, if you have a bunch of them, a windmill will keep up with it. But just wanted to show you that kind of interesting circuit, and sort of a non-lethal way to use a memory cell. But what's the fun in that, right? So here's a couple of lethal ways to use a memory cell. Here we have a base. You know, you left the door open. You might want to make them earn it. Either have it open like that or have this open so they got to pay to get in. Got to get past this door. Don't leave them all open. That's a little suspicious, I would think, but maybe not. Anyway, if they make their way into this base and they look down, they say, oh, look at this furnace going and an unlocked box, and just jump down there real quick. I'm gonna have a bad day. So underneath that, obviously, is a switch plate. You could use a laser. We have a Tesla coil here. I won't bother resetting that just now. Go ahead and show you the circuitry involved in this. So we have your power supply leading into a branch, and that branch is main power is gonna go to a timer, and that timer is gonna go out to the Tesla coil. You're gonna take your branch out, and you're gonna put that into the power of a memory cell. The floor plate that's under here, you'll send that power to the set side of the memory cell, and this will go, the inverted output will go to the doors that are open, and the output will go to the activation on the timer. When the timer is set off, this door closes, as do the other two that were open upstairs, and the Tesla coil comes on for a given period of time, trapping them behind a couple of doors, so they'll have to blow their way in if they can get back in. It should give you plenty of time to come and collect your loot. But that's how that circuit's set up. I'll go ahead. If you want to reset these, if you stand on the pressure plate and hit the button and it's somewhere you can reach it, you can get out of here without resetting it. He's always ready to go. Yeah, see, these doors all close when it's set. Again, here's just about the same thing. So we got this wooden door open. Something easy, they can eco raid through this because this door is open. And oh, it's an open base. So they buy this door. What the heck? So this door doesn't necessarily have to be open, so they could be trapped in here with whatever. The way that worked is there's a laser detector right here, low down on the ground at an angle, pointing through this doorway, so they have to get in here. This can cause the door to shut a little early if they're real cautious. It might just shut on them. Most of the time they make their way through and the door brushes them into the room, so they'll get stuck in here. The way that works is there's I'll show you real quick. There we have the power source going to the laser detector. The signal coming out of the laser detector is going to go to this door controller, and then the pass-through of the door controller is going to go to an on-off switch and cut off the power. Why do you need to do this? Well, if they trip the laser and get in here and cut the power, then somebody else could rescue them, or they could come back as a naked and re-trip the door and open it again. So you want that to stop working after it's tripped. So that's why it's important to do that. I guess you could do it with a toggle on a memory cell, but this is one of the cheaper ways to do it. And here we have a storage monitor on this box to set off this memory cell. And that's set into the set side of the memory cell. There's the power source again into the storage monitor. And like before, the red doors are the open doors, and the black doors are the doors that are going to close when it's set. So that's how this trap's going to work. So do something goofy like stick this through the edge of the door, and whoops, I didn't place it right, so they can get a hold of it and get in there and go, oh, I'm going to get myself a nice rug. So we'll go ahead and reset that just to show you the wiring here. You have the red signal going out to this door controller, which opens and closes this door, and the black signal going out to this door controller. So this closes when tripped and this opens. It's a good little trap to keep them in there, and they'll surely die to the flame trap. If you want, you could put a shelf in there and add a couple of shotgun traps on the upside down, and they surely ain't getting away from that. So that's a good lethal way to use the memory cell there. Over here we have sort of what I call a nerve center. These RF detectors would be detecting events in the world like the oil rig crate unlocking or something else like that nature. And so when that event happened, you would get, some activation. Apparently there's no... Uh-oh. Oh, this battery's dead. Anyway, those would go off and they would alert you and let you know if somebody's at oil rig unlocking crate. And you could either... depending on the switch you use, it will either be on for a period of time or on permanently until you shut it off. And over here, I like to use this as a combination. Let's say you have a base across the map. You want to take a look at what's going on over there, and you have some turrets. What you can do is, if you have them turret activation with an RF receiver, you can send out a signal and turn everything on. And then sit down at the computer and get into it. I don't think I set the name on this turret over here. Yeah, we'll have to cut the power for just a second. we'll set an identifier for this turret. We'll call him T1000. Now you know that base is across the map. I want to see what's going on over there, so I'm going to send a signal to turn that turret on. I'm going to jump on the computer stand and add that identifier. Take control of the turret. Now I have a pan, zoom, tilt camera. Well, not really zoom, but I have a pan camera that I can pan around and look, and I could shoot people if there was something in this turret, but there isn't right now. It's a handy way to find out what's going on across the map. If you want to see what's going on at another base that has turret level protection. Once that timer is up, it'll just go fuzzy. That's an advanced way to use the turrets that I really like a lot and have started just using now. A couple other things. Let me get back over here real quick. I want to show you. Here I have a circuit for turning on and off a generator depending on whether there's power supplied or not. This looks kind of complicated, but I can explain it. Here you have your main power source, whatever that is. You can forget about the on-off switch. I just put it there to interrupt power. So that would, your main power source would go into this branch, and the main off the branch would go into another branch. So your first branch out off the first branch would go into the blocker side of a blocker, and the main power out of your second branch would go into the power side of another blocker. The branch side of the second branch would go into the battery to keep it charged, because you're going to need a remote battery for the signal to start and stop the thing when the power's out, obviously. So you need to keep this trickle charged. So the configuration on this would have to be, that one's set to 2. It's going to have to be more than that. What did that say? No, that's the main power, I forget. This one has to be set a little higher, that's right. So you want to set that to 4 because it's a little more than the active usage. So that way it's staying topped off. So off this battery, which is your actual signal, you have your a branch. That main power will go into the power side of the first blocker. You'll send that branch power off of that to the power side of a timer. The power coming off the blocker will go into another branch, and the main power off of that branch will go into the force on node of the generator. This branch right here off the blocker, the branch out, this will go to the activation of the timer. So when the timer is activated, it will give power to this blocker, preventing this circuit from working, which is actually the power off generator, the force stop generator. So when the power comes back on, it will turn off the generator if there's power supplied. If there's no power supply, the generator will continue to run. But let's say, the generator starts running and it charges up the battery again, and you got power again, then it just kills the generator. So to stop that from constantly clicking on and off, you need to interrupt it somehow. So I'll run it maybe 10 minutes or something like that, and then have it turn off, and that usually sufficient enough, unless there's no power supplied. So let's simulate a power off situation. As you can see, these all died, and this one, these all opened up, which started the timer. And if the power should come back on, which it probably will if you have battery still, it'll keep the timer running until it's out. The generator will continue to run until it's up. I think I must have set that for a minute, but you can see that, as long, even if the power comes back on, the generator will continue to run until this timer is up. Let's see. Boy, I said that for a long time. So it'll just automatically shut off as soon as the timer is up, provided that there is more power. If there is no more power, it'll just simply it just won't shut off. It'll just keep running even after the timer expires. That the motor will continue to run. I'll set that at a real short time here this time, 5 seconds, so you can see. Power's off. It'll just remain off. Even though the timer is up, the generator continues to run unless power is supplied back to the system. Kind of nifty. But it is a hungry system. It requires 9 power, so it's going to need a hefty charge, 10, to keep it topped off. On the power saving side, we have here 9 turrets, all connected to one battery. That battery is only drawing 3 active usage right now. So, when I set it off, all 9 guns come on. If you need more than 9 guns for something, I don't know. I don't think a 10th is going to help. But you can power a lot of turrets off of one battery. Another way to use the RF to help save your life is to turn on and off a SAM site, your own SAM site. So if you're approaching, let's say you have a co-pilot on your mini chopper, you can cut the power to your AA for a minute, your SAM site. The way this works is you have your power supply here that leads into this blocker. Main power from the blocker comes out, you have this branch here. The main power from the branch goes into a blocker. The branch off goes into another branch. The main power from that branch goes into the timer, and that branch off goes to the RF receiver. The signal coming from the RF receiver will go to the toggle on the timer. Said that like a mouthful of mush, but hopefully you got it. So as long as the timer's on, it's cutting this circuit and not allowing power to pass through to the SAM site. So you got a brief, whatever you need, maybe 30 seconds to get over your wall and land safely before the SAM site comes on, how much ever time you need. And you can set this off. Now, if you're a solo and you don't have a co-pilot and you need it to go off automatically, you could do something like this. Many large bases have external TCs around them, so you could set up something like this: a small battery and an RF broadcaster sit nicely on top of a TC. And even if you have this already built, you can add this stuff. So you need a solar panel, an HBHF sensor, a small battery, and a broadcaster. And with this, every time you get near this, let's say you set it for yourself, now you're setting that signal off. So it'll give you 30 seconds of time to get over your wall and land just by flying by it or walking by it. And the opposite, you can, if you want to, you could make this turn on guns or lights or whatever, and kill the baddies. So you can spam these out all over the place. It's a very low watt system. All you need is a couple of power, so 1 solar power is more than enough to keep it up. Just one way to use your otherwise useless external TC. And, I think that's about all I got for you today. It's all my tips and tricks. If you got anything you'd like to add or something I did wrong, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment or a like if you got this far. I'm not too worried about subscriptions. I'm not trying to play video games to make money. I got a job for that. But anyway, video games are supposed to be fun. So have some fun and have a good day.